Welcome back to Callahan's Corner. You ask the questions, answer them live right here on Facebook. Got a user submitted question from Zachary in the Service Autopilot's user group right around credit card processing and the timing and payment structures. So in normal fashion, I'm going to open up the screen here and break down Zachary's question. But Zachary has a great question. And that's something we see with working with hundreds of clients each year as certified advisors of Service Autopilot, that we have a lot of questions around when should we actually go out and process our payments, and what is the benefits and maybe the drawbacks of running credit cards, and how do we do that? Should we take checks? Should we take cash? Should we take Venmo? All the different options. So I'm going to break this down here in an example here and pull up Zachary's question here. So Zachary's question is, does anyone charge credit cards weekly? If you do, is it for mowing only, for all services provided the previous week? Many years ago, I knew someone who paid for an in-person training at SA with founder Jonathan Potoshnik. Jonathan instructed him credit cards weekly and do not send an invoice. It's a recurring service charge the client signed up for. Don't recall many details other than this. Wondering if anyone else can elaborate on this process. So Zachary, the good news is probably about 10 years ago, I did have the pleasure of hanging out with Jonathan personally, knee to knee, at a roundtable at the early Service Autopilot office when it was in a strip mall. Scott Howard was right next door in a cubicle taking all the support calls himself. So awesome experience to hang out with JP, Jonathan Potoshnik of the Lawn Care Millionaire, co-founder of Service Autopilot. Met two of my lifelong partners in business, Chad Cranston and Garrett Matthews, one of our actually both of our certified seven-figure coaches at Simple Growth. So I'm going to break down the question here for Zachary around credit card processing. Before I get in the nuts and bolts of the timing, Zachary, I really want to dive in and talk about systems and processes. This is what we go into a lot of our coaching around, because a lot of times I think we go in haphazardly, as myself in the early days of Callahan's Lawn Care, and really we tried to be everything for everybody. We weren't systematic about the time and the complexity of our standardizing our operating procedures and workflow. So what I'm doing is pulling up a product called Lucid Chart here. And if you can see it here, I have got my payment processing. I'm going to actually present the document here so you can probably see it a little bit better. But what we've got here is our payment processing happening. So the job is completed. We need to process a payment. But I want to start looking at the complexity of some of the payments that we see when we have deep dive clients that come in, or one of our masterminds clients or Scale Plus clients. And they've got a lot of chaos going on in their business, very similar to what I had in our company. But right now, a lot of folks are going out daily, weekly, and monthly. And we're just going to imagine this is just the workflow for the residential division. You may have residential and commercial. So as we're looking at this, if we looked at the daily process, we've got our credit card process here, checks and cash, and keep it very simple for this example. We've got 1, 2, 3. Then we have to actually process it, create a deposit slip, whether it's in electronic or whatever that case may be. Cash is going to have to be deposited right to the bank. Hopefully, if you are processing checks, you have a check scanning machine in your office, and that would process them. But as you're looking at this, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different SOPs or processes, steps along the way that you would actually have to train an admin in your office, or if the business owner, you're doing it. So as you're looking, you got 7 here, you've got another 7 here on weekly, that's 14. And my math holds correct. If we did monthly, that would actually be 21 different steps to actually get your money. Now, as we're looking at it, in this weekly example, the credit cards are going to be ideal, because when you run the credit card, you're going to get that payment within about 48 hours in your bank once you have that credit card processing set up in Clarent if you're using Service Autopilot. In a process here for a check, you'd have to receive the check. You'd actually have to process it in the software, create a deposit slip, and then actually physically deposit in person or use a check scanner. This whole process before it clears could be anywhere from 5 to 7 days. Cash is going to be pretty much instantly once you get there. But I'm looking at time constraints and how do we get the business owner out of the day-to-day grind and the minutia, those repetitive tasks. So what I'm going to recommend for Zachary's question is going out and doing exactly what Jonathan Potoshnik of the Lawn Care Millionaire, co-founder, Service Autopilot, recommended to my company, Chad Cranston, Garrett Matthews. And to this day, we process the same exact way, as well as Garrett and his company, Matthews Tree and Pest down in Shreveport, Louisiana. So what I'm going to suggest, Zachary, is we go in, everybody's on a reoccurring process. So for the lawn mowing example particularly, we are going to go in and do all the work this week And then the following Tuesday, we are going to run the credit cards. And it's going to be literally 3 clicks of a button in service autopilot. The cash is going to be in the bank before the payroll liability. So what you've done is collected your payment for the labor that's connected to it, and you've got money in the bank to cover the labor from the work that was done. The other benefit of this is you'll never get more than one service behind for late payments if we run it on a weekly. So once again, we're looking at it as everything that happens this current week, we run the following Tuesday. 2 reasons why we do this, and this is exactly from Jonathan, so I want to give credit where credit is due. Obviously, the OG of lawn care and credit card processing. But the idea here is that anything that happens this week, if there's a customer service issue, if there's rain delay or weather delay, and we get pushed into the weekend, even if they get the work done on the weekend and they're really backed up, that gives us at least Monday to handle any complaints or issues up front. So what we've done is if we take this credit card processing here, I'm going to recommend any reoccurring service, such as your mowing and fertilizing, would be done on a weekly basis. Now, if we're doing a lot of one-time jobs, such as aeration and overseeding, spring cleanups, anything that's a one-time non-recurring job, I would add maybe potentially one layer of complexity to this. I would actually run any daily jobs on a daily instance. For instance, my house was just cleaned by our home cleaning company that uses service autopilot. Tina and the crew runs the credit cards at the end of each day or the beginning of the next day for the daily, and then the weekly are done on Tuesday. So for cash flow, one-time jobs, you may not want to wait on a weekly basis. Any reoccurring mowing, which was Zachary's question, I would suggest going in and for Zachary's question, doing it weekly on a weekly basis every Tuesday for everything that was previous. Any daily work here, I would go in and set your daily work and run credit card processing only. So the thing is, you really need to rip the Band-Aid off, in my opinion. You don't want to go in and be nilly-willy and say, we're going to grandfather everybody who paid with a check last year. Will allow them to do it, but everybody knew is credit cards. Full transparency, that's the biggest mistake we made in my company. Callahan, Tammy, and Christine in the office were literally ready to kill me because it became such a bottleneck that it was impossible to keep a standardized system there. So we ended up having to rip the Band-Aid off about a month and a half, 2 months into that process, where we said, you know what, if you're working with Callahan, you have to have a credit card on file. We are not accepting check or credit card or check or cash. If you're a residential client, and the cards are going to be run daily after each job that's a one-time. Any reoccurring job, such as mowing, is run on the following Tuesday. And what we did is literally alleviated on the residential division at least 6 steps in our standardizing operating procedures. Now, if you're running commercial work, obviously you want to try to drive them on credit cards at the same exact process. If it's a government institution or a large HOA, that's where the exception may happen. But really, as we're getting clear and starting to scale our lawn care, landscape maintenance businesses, most businesses now are focusing strictly on residential because it's standardized operating procedures. The business owner does not have to be on that crew. They don't have to do the estimates, but if we're creating a turnkey business that doesn't revolve the business owner, at least in the beginning, lawn mowing, fertilization, weed control, love it, perimeter pest, mosquito control, any of those services, let's get them in a subscription-based business. We're going to bill those, especially the mowing, everything from this week on Tuesday, but all the rest of them at the end of each day. But when you do it, you really just need to go all in, just like Garrett did and Chad did on their company. We took a half a step backwards and tried to make some exceptions. So the couple customers you may lose, I would not worry about it. You're going to gain it in labor efficiencies and cash flows. So Callahan's Corner, U.S. questions, we answer them right here on Facebook. Credit card only processing if you're doing residential. Bill them the day that we're done if it's non-recurring. If it's a recurring mowing, do it every Tuesday for the previous week. Comments, questions, drop below.